Namo Aditapa. Thank you for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This beautiful sound calls us back to our true home. The fourth mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I vow to cultivate loving speech and deep listening in order to bring joy and happiness to others and to relieve others of their suffering. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I'm determined to speak truthfully with words that inspire self-confidence, joy, and hope. I will not spread news I do not know to be certain, and will not criticize or condemn things of which I am not sure. I will refrain from uttering words that can cause division or discord, or that can cause a family or community to break. I'm determined to make all efforts to reconcile and resolve all conflicts, however small. For our Dharma lessons, we're reading Ajahn Munindo's book, Unexpected Freedom. Today we're beginning a chapter on a question of identity with Dhammapada verse 393. One should not be considered worthy of respect because of family or background or any outer sign. It is purity and the realization of truth that determines one's worth. I'm told that this evening, 1/3 of the world's population will be watching the World Cup football final between France and Brazil on television. This means billions of people. What is it that attracts so much interest? This is a relevant question for us to contemplate. On this particular evening, the perception of oneself as being French is charged with emotion. The newspapers are reporting that the cup final has triggered national pride unseen in France since the time of the revolution in 1789. What is at stake is personal and national identity, the passionate feeling of being a substantial somebody. All of us find our own ways of generating that feeling that we could call somebodyhood, identifying with our nationality, be it French, British, Brazilian, New Zealander, or Burmese, is one of those ways. We also identify with our gender, with our religion, with being Buddhist or Christian or Jewish and so on. And generating the feeling of identity is okay up to a certain point, if we are careful. But there are clear signs that show that past a certain point, it is not okay. Look at what happened when England lost their last match. The ugly behavior by so-called supporters is not okay. What does our practice tell us about training attention to see beyond the kind of identity that contributes to such unfortunate delusion? Who am I? We could begin our investigation by acknowledging the importance of the issue. Racial wars, class wars, and religious wars offer ample material for reflection. Acknowledging the relevance of perceived identity to what we do supports mindfulness around the actual bodily feeling of being a somebody. We start to notice as it is happening, the sense of solid I-ness being born. We notice when and in what conditions we get this feeling. We can also observe the experience of lacking self-definition. How does it feel when you first wake up in the morning after having been up late? We can learn a lot in the brief period after waking, when a sense of personal identity hasn't yet properly established itself. Sometimes we can't remember where we are. Next time this occurs, try not to rush past the experience. Observe how we reach out for familiar perceptions. Don't hurry to open your eyes. Just stay with the sense of wanting to find security, of not knowing where or who you are. When you do open your eyes, how does it feel to recognize my room or my things? Observe the sense of solidification as it occurs. This can be an effective way to begin undoing the way we grasp at our limited identities. Using such exercises, we develop an understanding of how the perceptions of my body and my thoughts arise. We realize that these ideas are only relatively true. We develop a sense of responsibility for those perceptions. We come to see that they are not ultimately what we are. In my situation, for instance, the perception I am the abbot and have a duty to attend meetings of the monastic sangha has consequences which I can contemplate. Because it's a relatively true perception, I act accordingly, even though ultimately it's not who I am. If we don't exercise care in how we hold these relative identities, then we set our attention chronically short of reality and grasp programmed perceptions as absolute truths. We believe this body is really me. My role in this community is ultimately important, and these perceptions can have serious consequences. I've begun to suffer arthritic pain, and believing in bodily identity as ultimately true leads to considerable struggle. Or if I get up in the morning still thinking about some of the conflict from the day before, assuming that I am what I think leads to immediate struggle. So long as I believe these conditioned activities of mind are more than the relative identities they really are, then there is no way I can be simply happy. However, having begun to see through the apparent substantiality of these mental processes, it would be unwise to try to dismiss them. Just as it would be naive for politicians to dismiss the power of a sense of national identity, it is likewise naive for us not to pay very close attention to this area of our inner world. To try to dismiss our sense of identity would contribute to our deluded misery. We'd experience a terrible sense of powerlessness as a result of living a false life. Fortunately, there are wise teachings given by those who have walked the way ahead of us that invite us to engage in a training of body, speech, and mind that leads to realization of the place of true identity. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. Namo Aditafa. Thanks so much for joining me today.